Hey, what's up, everybody? Scott Spreitzer here. He's Indian Cowboy. We are DocSports.com's, I guess, White Chocolate. We've been kind of talking about what name are we going to use. That one's been thrown out there quite a bit. Listen, we're going to be talking about the college football championship on Monday because we won't be back here until next Wednesday night, Thursday. We've also got all of the divisional round playoff games in the NFL that we're going to chat about. And I'm going to tell you, man, I love this playoff format for the most part. I'd like to see 16 teams. But as it is, I think it's a lot better than a 4-team rotation where votes count more than action on the field, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, as an Alabama fan, it's unfortunate, and of course you have all of these homers that are like, well, now that everybody's playing players, you know what I mean? The playing field has been evened and the SEC dominance is gone after 25 years. It's only been 1 year that it hasn't been back-to-back years since an SEC team, hasn't been there in the title game. But and again, I joke around that I'm also butthurt because it's probably partially true. But we'll see what happens next year. But yeah, it's been a great format. And will be interesting to see. And I think you made a great point. You mentioned that Notre Dame and Ohio State would not have been in this title game if it was in the previous format. So obviously the two teams that are in the title game. So this does allow for the best and the cream to rise up. And what's interesting is coaching really plays a big role.
Sure.
If you're a good coach, you're going to advance,
Yep.
and being a good game prepper and all that stuff. So I think that's it's a good thing. So yeah.
If you're a good coach and you're not facing Michigan, if you're Ryan Day, you got a good shot to. They're in his head, man. Notre Dame ought to paint those golden helmets with that maize and blue, and Ryan did probably have a butt clencher on the sideline. I won't forget how to coach, but we'll save that game for last. Let's talk about some divisional round action in the postseason in the NFL. Texans at Kansas City. The book's kind of split on this one. I see they've got KC 8.5. That total sitting at 41.5, and it is the lowest playoff total that we've seen with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback in his postseason career. I do know that, of course, the Texans won't have Tank Dell. They had him the last time these two teams hooked up a few weeks ago. He's out. But I really think there's a good shot that this one sails over the total by the time it's said and done, even if it's a closer game than I expect. I don't expect it to be a close game by the end, but I do think the total's a little bit too low.
Yeah, I mean, I like more than anything else. I like Kansas City in this game. I just don't trust Houston at all. Mm-hmm. And I understand that Houston beat the Chargers 32-12, but I also think that Houston, I think it's more the Chargers are bad than Houston is good. Mm-hmm. And they beat up 32-12. It's just 2-3 weeks ago that Houston lost to Baltimore 2-31, mm-hmm. Right? This is a team that lost to the Titans earlier in the year, 27-32, and they lost to the Jets 13-21. There are a lot of weaknesses on this team, and Kansas City's had to sit around for a couple weeks after that 0-38 loss to the Broncos. I know they didn't play anybody, but it still sits weird in the locker room when you get beat up that bad, and you got to see your team get beat up even when your starters are resting. Sure. And I think Mahomes and company, and they haven't had a good stretch run, 3-7 ATS. I think they get it together with a big win here.
I had the Texans last week, plus a field goal at home against the Chargers. And about halfway through the second quarter, I felt like it should have been 21-0 Chargers, which meant, okay, I got a good shot at down 6-0 to maybe win this game, catch a break. And they did come back and they got the win. And I put a lot of that on the fact that nothing against the Chargers other than they overachieved. They played above their skis, as they say. And, I think next year they'll get better. They'll get a better running back and running game going. But I thought they were there because of Harbaugh, and they didn't have the talent to take it over the top. And again, they didn't take advantage of early game chances. Instead, they kicked field goals and let Houston stick around. Commanders at Detroit. Detroit laying 9.5, depending on where you shop. That total in the mid-50s. I've seen 55.5 and 56. So high total on this one. And I'm a Jaden Daniels fan. How could you not be? He's had a great rookie season. Even if he has a sophomore slump next year, I still think this guy's in for a real long career. Maybe a little bit too much of a pat on the back for Washington thus far. If you watch that game against Tampa, they're down 17-13, Washington was, in the fourth. And then Baker Mayfield, without a hit, nobody hit him, nobody touched him, fumbles the ball around his own 13-yard line. Washington, 4 plays later, ends up in the end zone. They go up 3. And I don't want to take away that final drive where they go 51 yards on 10 plays, get the game-winning field goal to close the game. I don't want to take that away from them. That was impressive by Daniels and the offense. But the bottom line is they did get a lot of help. And the thing that stood out to me the most, I see the Commanders gave up 6.5 yards per play last week. They only gained 5 yards per play. That's a little concerning.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll tell you about this is I'm happy that Washington has won 6 in a row, but keep in mind that the Lions are going to be on crack. Dan Campbell's going to have literally on crack. He's going to have them so jacked up. There's a couple teams that you got to look out for that really have a chance at this title, and they're all hungry for their title because they might never get back here again. Lions were close last year, right? And they remember that. And this is the playoffs. They could really lose to this Washington team, and then you're done.
Yep.
Right? So what he's telling these guys is, look, you've got 3 games, right? You got 3 games here, and if we win, you are Super Bowl champions. 3 games, and this is the first one. So he's going to get them jacked up here. I think Washington, the teams that they beat, Tampa Bay, kind of suspect. They beat a whole bunch of under 500 teams, including Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans. They just beat up on a whole bunch of those teams. Dallas is not very good. They beat them. They beat Atlanta. They beat Philadelphia, which didn't have Hurts. And they beat New Orleans, and Tennessee is Tennessee. So Washington hasn't really played up to, beating up anybody really good lately. Detroit throttled Minnesota, who's good. They beat San Francisco, who really wanted to win that game. So I've been really impressed with Detroit. I'm going to take them here.
Yeah, it's Detroit or nothing for me as far as the side is concerned. I can't back Washington this spot. And rookie quarterbacks on the road to the playoffs. They've lost They're 5 of 6. They've lost, and they've only covered, I believe, one of those also. 1 in 5 because he won last week, talking about Daniels. And again, they've only covered 2 of those 6 games. So I think that's going to be tough for them to overcome what's going on in Detroit, especially with Detroit having time off and getting healthier. And they got the 2 running backs back, including Montgomery, who I think anytime touchdown, that prop with Montgomery, not bad. It's about $1.50 though. So you do have to lay a price. And I got a better prop coming up in just a bit that I'm going to talk about and throw your way. Rams at Philadelphia. And in this particular game right now, we are looking at the Eagles laying 6, the total 44. I'm going to give you the prop right now on this one I see, and then I'll turn it over to you and you can tell everybody what you like here. But the prop that I like here is Jalen Hurts. He's had 150 carries in 15 regular season games before the postseason. One of those games, though, the very final game that he played in the regular season, he got knocked out in that game early. He had only 4 passes. He had 3 carries in that game. So if you're talking about his 14 games that he played in fully in the regular season, you're talking about 147 carries, 10.5 per game. You get third and short potential. You get Jalen Hurts in all likelihood running with the football. You get the brotherly shove on 4th down. That could happen a couple of times in this game on 4th and short. You get any kneel downs if Philly is leading this game late in the game and they've got the football. Every time he takes a knee, it's a carry. And so you've got all that working for you. Plus, when these 2 teams played earlier this year, week 12, Jalen Hurts had 12 carries in that game. And it came in a day when Barkley got 26 carries for 255 yards. And yet Hurts still got a dozen carries. So this prop, by the way, Hurts over under 9.5 rush attempts. I like it over. It was minus $1.10 around 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday. So it's going to be pretty close to that, even if it's gone up by the time people watch this. But yeah, Jalen Hurts over that 9.5 carries. I like that.
I joke with people that I'm like, that's why you're the way you are. That's a prop that I would not have thought of whatsoever. That's really smart. I like the Rams. I think the Rams play for their city. I was very impressed with how the Rams did against Minnesota, beating them 27-9. And in my algorithms, Minnesota was coming off a bad loss to Detroit, and then you're going to face a team super motivated off of a bad loss, and who you had revenge against, if I'm not mistaken, right? And you beat them by 18. That's pretty good. And I think the Rams are playing for their city. McVay is a Super Bowl winning coach. We forget that. And let's not forget that this team has given up 9 points or less in 4 of their last 5 games. San Fran, Jets, Arizona, Seattle, and Minnesota. And that Seattle game, they didn't even play their starters really, right? They didn't really play. So if you really look at it, one can even say after that bad game against Buffalo, where they still won 44-42, they've given up 4 straight games in single digits.
Right.
God, that's good. And McVay is such an amazing coach. They also have revenge from losing to them by 17 points. And now LA is playing for their city. I think the Eagles are in trouble.
Yeah, I had the Rams on Monday night, and I took that opposite approach of a lot of people were saying, their minds are going to be on what's going on, the tragedies in SoCal. And I'm like, when that Boston Marathon bombing happened, I remember the Red Sox were playing later that day, and I was doing a radio show that morning, and a lot of people were talking about their minds are going to be on that. And I'm like, in all due respect, these guys are going to have their minds on what's going on between the white lines. And for one reason, that's why they are professional athletes. They've got that next level gear that they can go to mentally and physically that a lot of us mere mortals don't. When they're on the field and there's a tragedy, that's the cool water to these teams like Boston back then, like the Rams on Monday night. They're focused on let's go out there, let's play our butts off, and let's kind of do it for the city. Now, once the game starts, they're not thinking about that because they have the ability to switch that gear. But I think of that as being something that helps that team focus for a game than detracts from them. And again, all due respect to everything going on in these people's lives. I just think professional athletes have that next gear. Final game of the playoffs, the Ravens laying a point. They were a short dog. They're now a 1-point favorite on Wednesday evening. That total 51.5. Your thoughts on this one, IC?
What total disrespect. What total disrespect to the Bills. You are the Buffalo Bills. You have the MVP probably, Josh Allen. And you're facing a Ravens team who you have revenge against as well from losing 35-10, and you are the home dog. Buffalo Bills are the home dog, being 14-4 over a Baltimore team that is 13-5. Unbelievable. But Baltimore did beat Pittsburgh twice. They had revenge against Pittsburgh. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh had revenge, but it didn't matter, right? Baltimore throttled them twice. Baltimore has won, 5 in a row. Buffalo comes in, beating Denver 31-7. They did great. And this is after they destroyed Denver.
Sure.
Still no respect, right? And that was my 7-star this weekend. I was on Buffalo. I didn't, but as if Bo Nix was going to go in and beat Josh Allen, I was like, no,
it's going to happen. Yeah.
No, this is not a Tim Tebow situation, but the issue is that it's hard to go against. I was telling you earlier, I was like, it's hard to go against either of these guys because it's sad. Yeah. Because one of them is going to have to lose, and you want to see both of them win a title, and you also want to see Detroit, Goff and company win a title. Does Goff have a title with McVay? No,
he did not. Nope.
No, Stafford won one with him, but not
exactly.
Goff. That's right, Stafford. That's right. So yeah, none of these guys have one. I guess I'd like to see Mahomes lose. That'd be good. But for this game, I like the over. I just think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think the fact that Buffalo is a plus 1-point dog is going to be a great active dog. I think Baltimore is going to have to be pushing the tempo. This kind of reminds me of what a Baltimore-Cincinnati game would look like, and that game went over 60 points earlier this year. I'm going to take the over.
I don't play 7-point teasers, but the Buffalo Bills are going to be an extremely popular, 7-point tease or half of a teaser, 2-team teaser. And if folks can get that up to over 7, which it'll be 8 if they do that, this is going to be, the books are going to want the Ravens to win this one by margin, no doubt about it, by the time this is said and done with the betting. A real quick note for me on this one is Lamar's got the 0-2 record in the divisional round. I don't care about the record. A lot of good quarterbacks don't win playoff games. What I do worry about with Lamar is the fact that he's got a 44 quarterback rating in those divisional round games, that he's got a 56% completion rate. He's got a 1-2 touchdown to INT ratio. That he was so bad with his quarterback rating of 75 in 6 playoff games before this year's postseason is concerning. And I know he's got Henry in the backfield, which he didn't have before, previous years, and that does help. But that's your choice. Do you trust that he's going to get over the anxiousness that he's even talked about? Or do you trust Josh Allen, who's playing like the best quarterback in the league right now? Real quick note on this. Josh Allen's number 1 in the NFL in QBR and quarterback rushing touchdowns when under pressure. And he's not making those crazy, dumb, turnover-worthy passes late in the season and last week in the playoffs that cost him. So it's going to be tough. Did a show on Mad Dog Radio. I do it every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, IC. And one of the guys that was on was Mark Schlereth, the former All-Pro football player. And he was really touting the Baltimore Ravens. I have never played at that level. I've never played at a major college level. But the bottom line is a lot of athletes are on Baltimore. A lot of coaches that are no longer the postseason are on Baltimore that have been interviewed. I don't like their opinions on this game. I think it's Buffalo or nothing in this contest. And I worked with a lot of athletes, Drew Pearson, Randy White. I've done shows with Mike Ditka in the past. No offense, but athletes, pro athletes, they don't make the best handicappers. I'm just going to leave it at that. They know more than us when it comes to the X's and O's, but they don't know how to put it to use when it comes to that almighty point spread. Let's talk college football on Monday night. Ohio State laying 8.5, the total 46 over Notre Dame, the game in Atlanta, Georgia. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, this wouldn't be our championship matchup if it was the old, format of 4 teams making the postseason. I will say this, I've bet on Ohio State in all 3 of their playoff games. They were the 8-unit game of the year against Oregon. They jumped out big, looked like they were going to crush Texas. Texas made some nice moves, and what they did, they started throwing the ball to their backs. They started throwing to the short side. That was Ewers, who's going to be playing in the NFL next year. I don't know that Riley Leonard has that. That's not his style. He wants to run. He wants to grind. I don't know if he can throw those short timing passes to the backs, the short side of the field. If he does, they got a chance to stick around. I just haven't seen that out of him. And Dame has lost 2 offensive left tackles over the course of several weeks. It's going to be tough when you got your 3rd choice at left tackle. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously all of America is going to be rooting for Notre Dame. No one's going to be rooting for Ohio State except if you're from Ohio, because everybody thinks Ryan Day's a jerk and, he's kind of arrogant and blah, blah, blah. Marcus Freeman is likable. He's just a really likable coach. Although he took what James Franklin said a little offensive, which I thought was kind of silly. I mean, he was just saying he has a nice hairline. He's like, oh, I took it offensive, and coach was – but maybe he was trying to little brother him. And you know how athletes don't want to get little brothered?
Of course.
So I can see that too, and I think that's what he was trying to do, kind of little brother him a little bit. And he was like, no, I deserve to be here. You know what I mean? And I deserve to be here, that he showed that. But I like the under in this game for 2 reasons. One, if Notre Dame is not doing well, that means they don't have the athletes to compete against Ohio State, then they're not going to score. The other way is Notre Dame is doing well, then they're going to keep Ohio State's offense off the field and grind, ball control. So I think, everybody's on the over in this game. I had this game at like 43. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this game dips under the post total.
I think some of the best handicapping I've heard on this game from anybody I've done a show with this last few days. I love the point about, if Ohio State blows this game open and wins by a wide margin, it's going to be probably because Notre Dame's not doing much on offense. And if it's a close game, Notre Dame needs to play a lower scoring game. They can't get into a shootout, not with those wide receivers for Ohio State. So I love that analysis. I agree with you on that. The under looks like the play with that total sitting at 46. Listen, everybody, we'll be back next Wednesday. Of course, we'll be talking Wednesday night, Thursday. We'll be talking about the next round of NFL playoffs. We'll already have our college football championship game determined, and maybe we'll start throwing some college basketball into the mix at that point. Don't forget, you can check out all of our plays. We both release our football plays for the entire weekend on Thursday afternoons over at DocSports.com.
Scott, if they watch our show next week, we're going to give a promo code that'll give us 10% off our season for either NBA or college basketball.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That'll be on next week's show. White chocolate? I'm not sure yet. Miami Vice, 3.0. I don't know. Anyway, he's IC. I'm Scott Spreitzer. You can check out all of our information, our videos, all that stuff exclusively at DocSports.com. And you know what to do, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Let's put them in the win column.